Hello and welcome to Case Management 203, the VI-SPDAT and Coordinated Entry. I am your trainer, HMIS System Lead Trisha Cano. During this session, I will be showing you how to enter the VI-SPDAT assessment into HMIS through the Coordinated Assessment Project. The Balance of State uses a no wrong door model for the coordinated entry. So this is the HMIS project that all users will use to record and share VI-SPDAT data. We will also cover how to record a referral, which is required for coordinated entry, and how to run an incoming referrals report. Please note we will only demonstrate how to input the data for the VI-SPDAT into ServicePoint correctly. This training is not about how to actually complete the VI-SPDAT assessment on your client. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at the HMIS Help Desk at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thank you, and let's get started. So for training today, I am pretending to work at Crossroads Mission in Yuma, and that is an emergency shelter. And I'm going to do a coordinated entry on a client. So before you start recording your coordinated entry, you must get into Enter Data As mode to the Coordinated Assessment Project in HMIS. You always must do this first. So look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and find the Enter Data As link and click on it. And then find the Coordinated Assessment Project on the list. If your agency has multiple projects, it may not be right at the top of the list. But find Coordinated Assessment Project and click on the green plus sign to activate it. As you can see, now it's listed next to Enter Data As, and that means I am now working in the Coordinated Assessment Project. I am no longer working in Crossroads Mission. The next thing you should do is you should backdate to the day that the assessment was actually completed if that wasn't today, keeping in mind that the policies and procedures says that all data should be entered within 7 calendar days. So for example, today I'm going to set my backdate to 4/25/2015. Now I will attempt to search for the client that the VI-SPDAT assessment was done on in HMIS. So go to the Client Point module on the left side of your screen and click on it. And here's where you can search for your client either by name or by their client ID number if you already know it. So in this case, I'm going to just search for a test client in the system. And I didn't get any matches. They're a brand new client. If I had, their name would be listed under here under Client Results, and you could just click on their name to choose them. But since they are a new client to the system, I need to fill out the rest of their information. So it's the full name reported. I'm going to just put in a pretend social security number and say they reported their full social security number and that they are a veteran. Once I have all this completed, then I can click Add New Client with this information. Great. Once the client record opens, go to the Entry Exit tab, and we're going to create an entry into the Coordinated Assessment Project. Click the Add Entry Exit button. Ensure the provider says Coordinated Assessment Project. If it does not, if it says your provider, such as Crossroads Mission, that means you're not in EDA mode and you need to cancel your command and go back and get into Enter Data As mode first. Next, you will choose the type, and this will always be HUD, and then the entry date, or the date that the assessment was completed. We are in backdate mode, so mine automatically defaulted. Click Save and Continue. And what will open is the UDE assessment first. This is because it is required in the database HMIS that we try our best to gather all of the UDEs or universal data elements on every client entered, even if we're just doing the short VI-SPDAT assessment. So I am just going to very quickly go through the universal data elements questions because you should have learned how to answer these in HMIS 101 or 102. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. So you're going to put in your client's date of birth and the full date of birth reported, their primary race, a secondary race if they report one, otherwise leave it blank, ethnicity, gender, do they have a disabling condition, yes or no, where did they sleep the night before the assessment was done, and wherever you chose for where they slept the night before, how long were they there? Were they on the streets for a few days, a week, or longer than a year? And then where was the last place that they resided in housing for at least 90 days? This is what zip code of last permanent address means. If they can't remember the zip code of where they were last housed for 90 days, you can just ask them, okay, well, what town were you staying in? What city were you staying in? What county even were you staying in? And if you hover on the zip code of last permanent address question, we give you a cheat sheet of generic zip codes that you can use if the client does not remember. So I'm going to say, well, they were in Yuma, so 85364. Relationship to head of household. If you're working with a single, this is always self or head of household. And since we only have the capability of putting singles in the VI-SPDAT assessment at this time in HMIS, that is the only thing you would choose. Client location is always the COC code for balance of state. You can only get it wrong by not choosing the right answer. And homelessness primary reason. We'll say loss of job.
Length of time on street in an emergency shelter or safe haven. These set of questions, along with other questions in the assessment, will help you determine if your client is chronically homeless. Please answer these questions on all heads of households and adults. Let's go over to the first question. Client entering from the streets, ES or SH. To the right, answer from the pick list, yes or no. Answer yes if the client is entering your project directly from a place not meant for habitation, an emergency shelter, or safe haven. Answer no if the client entering your project from any other location. Diversion and homeless prevention projects should choose no. So for this scenario, I'm going to choose yes. Answer the next question if yes for clients entering from streets, ES or SH, approximate date. If your client is coming from the streets, ES or SH, you should have the client look back to the last time the client was not on the street, ES or SH. I'm going to give you a few guidelines, you can call them rules, to answer some of these questions. If there was a break in their time on street, ES or SH, of less than 7 nights, do not count it as a break. It would be one continuous episode of homelessness. If the client experienced a break for more than 7 nights, count a break in between episodes. If a break in time was 90 days or less due to an institutional stay, such as jail, substance abuse or mental health treatment facility, hospital, or any other similar facility, that time should be included in the start date time. If the client was at an institutional stay for longer than 90 days, they're considered to be housed. If the client knows the month that the homelessness started, but not the exact day, use the day they're entering from your project with the month and year that they reported, because this is self-reported information. Documents in HMIS may be used only to jog the memory of the client, but cannot be substituted for information they provided directly to you. If the answer above was no, then just leave this question blank. So for this scenario, I'm going to say 10/9 of 2014. Next question. Regardless of where they stayed last night, number of times the client has been homeless on street in ES or SH in the past 3 years, including today. So please record appropriate answer for number of times the homelessness experience in the past 3 years for any combination of place not meant for habitation, emergency shelter, or safe haven. When counting episodes, please use the guidelines and the rules that I explained previously. Never in the past 3 years should be used for diversion or homeless prevention projects only. So from this pick list, you would choose never in 3 years, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 or more times. So for this scenario, I'm going to say 2 times. Total number of months homeless in streets in ES or SH in the past 3 years. So from this pick list, you would count the accumulated number of months a client was homeless and residing in one or any combination of these 3 locations in the past 3 years. Please note, any single day or part of a month spent homeless should be counted as 1 full month. So if it's more than 12 months, you don't have to calculate anything more than that. You would just put in more than 12 months. So I'm going to choose more than 12 months for this scenario. Then we have length of time homelessness, status documented. To answer this question, yes or no, indicate if there is documentation of the client's length of homelessness, either in the client's paper file or in HMIS for either the number of times homeless or number of months homeless in the past 3 years. So this is asking for proof. So you can answer it either yes or no. I'm going to answer it yes for this scenario.
Once you complete the universal data elements, click Save. Don't click Save and Exit because you're not done yet. Once you click Save, then scroll back up to the top under the Select an Assessment area and switch assessments. Switch to the VI-SPDAT Prescreen. Once you click on the VI-SPDAT Prescreen, the assessment will open below. And it's very important that this assessment is completed in its entirety for reporting purposes. So the first question is interview date. This is the date that the assessment was done with the client. I can use a shortcut and click the calendar with the green check mark because I'm in backdate mode. Next is the interviewer name. This is the name of the person that actually did the assessment with the client. And I know that sometimes this is different than the person doing the data entry. If that's the case, don't worry about it. We can still tell who did the data entry by looking at the history. Next is the interviewer agency, the name of the agency that the person works at, and the county in which the assessment was done in. The demographics fills in automatically from the previous assessment we just completed. And now we're to the actual VI-SPDAT sub-assessment. And here's where you're going to enter the VI-SPDAT assessment that you just did with your client, probably on paper. So click the Add button. The start date fills in automatically, and I'm going to just very quickly skim through these questions because, like we mentioned earlier, this is not a training on how to conduct the VI-SPDAT, it's just how to put the data in HMIS. So how long have they lived on the streets? How many times have they been housed and homeless again? In the past 6 months, how many times have they been to the emergency room, police interaction, taken to the hospital in an ambulance, used a crisis service or suicide prevention, inpatient hospitalization, ever been attacked or beaten up, ever threatened to harm yourself or others, legal stuff going on right now, forced or tricked to do things you don't want to do, ever do things that are considered to be risky, and types of places that you usually sleep. Next, you have socialization and daily functioning. Does anyone think you owe them money? Do you have any income coming in on a regular basis? Is it enough to meet all your monthly expenses? Do you have activities that make you happy, or are they just for survival? Do you have friends and family members out of convenience? And do you have friends and family that, take your money, borrow your cigarettes, etc.? This is for the observation only. And then you have wellness. Where do you usually go for healthcare? And then these next parts are actual diseases or conditions. So you have to say, does the client now or have they ever had or did even a healthcare provider tell them that they had any of these conditions? And it's just a simple yes or no answer. So kidney disease, frostbite, liver disease, HIV/AIDS, heat exhaustion, heart disease, emphysema, diabetes, asthma, cancer, hepatitis C, or tuberculosis. And then again, it's an observation question. And then it asks about problematic drug or alcohol abuse, consumed every day for the past month, ever used injection drugs, ever been treated and then returned to alcohol or drug abuse, do you use non-beverage type alcohol, and have you ever blacked out? Again, an observation question only. And then ever been taken to the hospital against your will for mental health issues? Ever gone because you weren't feeling 100% emotionally? Spoken to a mental health professional? Any serious brain injuries? Ever been told you have a learning disability? And ever have problems concentrating? Another observation question. And then finally, the last two, any medicine prescribed to you that you haven't taken or you sold it, etc. And have you ever experienced any abuse in the past? Once you've answered all these questions based on your client's answers, you go to the bottom and you click Calculate. And the system calculates what their acuity score is based on the answers you entered in. In this case, my pretend client received a acuity score of 12, and that indicates that this individual is recommended for permanent supportive housing. If someone scores 10 or above, that's the recommendation. If they score between 5 and 9 for the balance of state, it's recommended that they go to either be referred to either rapid rehousing or transitional housing, depending on the situation. And then under 5 is diversion. So once you've completed this and click Calculate, click Save. And now you will be able to see the VI-SPDAT you just completed in the preview pane here. Keep in mind, if you access a client and they already have a VI-SPDAT, they really should only be done every 6 months. So if you see one and it's less than 6 months old, you do not need to do another one unless there's been some sort of major life change. Next, we have Preferred Referral County. This is where would the client like to live. In many cases, they want to stay in the same area they're in, but there may be some clients who relocated to that area and they want to go back to where they're from, or maybe they just don't have any kind of preference at all. It's very important that you answer this question for reporting purposes. So I'm going to say my client, they grew up in Yuma and they want to stay in that area. And then does the client have ties to the preferred county they chose above? And finally, you're going to put in some contact information on this client. This is very beneficial for the next case manager that's going to be working with them so that they can find them. If your client has a cell phone number or a message phone, maybe there's a family member that can get a hold of him, please put that number here. I'm just going to put a pretend number in, obviously. And there's space for a secondary or message phone number as well. This text box is for where is the client located or where can they usually be found if they're living on the streets. So I'm going to say 7th Avenue and Main, which is just a pretend address. And I can't spell. And then finally, we have additional notes. Any additional notes or information about this client that you assessed that you think either you don't want to forget or you think another case manager would find very beneficial when they go to work with this client. And then just click Save. And now you've saved their contact information. Once this assessment is complete, then you can click Save and Exit, and you have completed the entry into the coordinated assessment project. The next step in the workflow is to create a referral or more than one. So based on the client's acuity score, which in this case was a 12, I need to refer them to appropriate housing. Now, a lot of times the situation is if they do need permanent supportive housing, there's not necessarily a unit immediately available. So they may need to go into some sort of bridge housing in the meantime. If that's the case, then they'll often have more than one referral. For the example that I'm going to show you today, we're going to pretend that the client does need permanent supportive housing, but there's nothing available right now. So I'm going to house them at my emergency shelter, Crossroads Mission, first, while we look for a permanent supportive housing unit for them to occupy. So I need to put in 2 referrals. One referral to myself because I'm going to take them into emergency shelter, and then another referral for permanent supportive housing because my agency doesn't supply that. So next I'm going to click on the Service Transactions tab right behind Entry Exit, and then I'm going to click on Add Referral. The first thing is the Service Code Quick List. This is where I'm going to choose what is my client's need? What is their need based on the VI-SPDAT assessment I just did? Well, based on their acuity score, their need is homeless permanent supportive housing. So I'm going to choose this one for sure. So I click on it to highlight it, and then I click the button Add Terms. But as I stated earlier, in this scenario, my client needs bridge housing, so I'm also going to refer them to an emergency shelter right away. So I'm also going to choose emergency shelter and then click Add Terms. So they have 2 needs. Next, right underneath Service Code Quick List is Referral Provider Quick List. This is the list of all the agencies in HMIS that use HMIS that I may refer my client to. So for instance, first I said they really need permanent supportive housing. So I'm going to refer them to a couple of places in the area that provide that service. So one would be Achieve Human Services. So I would choose Achieve Human Services and then click Add Provider. But I can do more than one referral. So for training today, I'm also going to refer them to my handy little test agency, Add Provider. And then finally, I'm referring them to myself, and I pretend that I work at Crossroads Mission. So I'm going to refer them to Crossroads Mission for emergency shelter, Add Provider. And see how they're listing below? Now I'm going to scroll down to the referral data area and fill this out. So the referral ranking should be based on the acuity score and where you're going to refer them to. In my case, the client had a 12, so they're being referred to permanent supportive housing ultimately. Next, I can associate the VI-SPDAT score that they received to every referral that I'm making. So I'm going to click the search button, and it's going to go and find every VI-SPDAT that was ever done. And if there was more than one, I would choose the most recent by clicking the green plus sign. And now their VI-SPDAT score of 12 is associated with the referral that I'm making. Finally, there is the option where you can have the referral agencies, the people I'm referring them to, say Achieve and Test Agency, I can send them a generic email by clicking this checkbox. Keep in mind they need to use HMIS and they need to be set up in the system to receive these emails. But if I wanted to do that, I could just check mark the box. And then down here under referrals, I need to make sure that the need or the referral quick list I chose matches the actual provider. So I'm referring them to Achieve for permanent supportive, but not emergency. Looks good. I'm referring them to HMIS Test Agency for permanent supportive, but not emergency, just permanent supportive. So I'm going to uncheck that. And I'm referring them to Crossroads Mission for not supportive housing, but emergency shelter. This looks great. And then finally, at the selected needs, I need to decide what's the outcome. So for permanent supportive housing, The outcome is that it's pending because I'm referring them to a couple different providers, but I don't know which one the client is going to choose or which one will have an opening first, so it's just pending. However, in this scenario, I'm referring the client to emergency shelter right away, and I know as that emergency shelter provider that I'm going to accept the client. So I can go ahead and close this referral right now by saying closed and fully met. Once you've filled in all your outcomes, click Save All to save all the referrals and all the needs. And then you'll be returned to your referrals preview pane where you can view everything you just did. Once you've recorded the VI-SPDAT assessment in HMIS and the referral to an appropriate agency or agencies, now it's time to exit the client from the VI-SPDAT or the Coordinated Assessment project. The reason for this is because the purpose of the Coordinated Assessment project or the coordinated entry is just to assess the client's needs, figure out what their acuity score is, and make an appropriate referral. And then you should immediately exit them. You do not have to wait until they are actually housed. So often the exit date is the same day. So I went back to my entry exit tab for the client, and now I'm going to exit them because I've assessed them and I've referred them. So I am done. So click on the Edit Exit pencil next to Exit Date to start the exit process. And the exit date is the same day as the entry, which is fine. And you're going to check reason for leaving. Most of the time it's completed program, but there are exceptions to the rule. If a client disappeared in the middle of the assessment or they refused to complete it, or they just decided they wanted to decline services, you can choose some other appropriate answer. And then destination is where did they go after the assessment. Now, if you're not in emergency shelter and you weren't able to offer them some sort of immediate respite, then you should choose where they came from. So for instance, if someone was staying with friends, but they can't stay there, they're being kicked out, but you don't have anything for them right now, their destination would be back to their friend's house until you can help them. But in my scenario today, I am the emergency shelter and I am accepting them immediately, so I know their destination is emergency shelter. Click Save and Continue. And then you need to complete the exit, which is just the assessment disposition. So this is where did you refer them based on their score, their acuity score that they got on the VI-SPDAT pre-screen. At the top are based on the different scores that they may have gotten. And even if you referred them to more than one place, which in this case we did, we would choose the one that most closely relates to the score they received on the VI-SPDAT. There are other options though. For instance, if the applicant declined services or they terminated, like they walked off or they refused to complete the assessment, those options are on this list. But I'm going to say that I referred them to permanent supportive housing because they had a score of 12. And then you're just going to click Save and Exit to finish the exit. So you have entered your client, done their assessment, created some referrals, and exited them. So you're pretty much done with the coordinated assessment project. Now I will show you how to run a report. So let's say I'm on the receiving end, like I'm the test agency, and I'm receiving referrals, and I want to see who's been referred to me, who has the highest acuity because I have a space open. So I am going to switch agencies really quick, and then I will show you how to do that. Okay, so now I am the HMIS test agency where, if you remember, this is where I referred my client for permanent supportive housing. And I'm pretending that I have an opening, so I want to see who's been referred to me and who has the highest acuity score. Who do I need to take first? So what I will do is I will go to the menu on the left side of the screen and click on the Reports module. Click on the Referrals button to open the Referrals report, and your provider will default automatically. Underneath that, there's two radio buttons. I want you to click the This Provider and its Subordinates button. This is because just in case your agency has more than one project and someone does a referral to one of your specific projects instead of the agency as a whole, if you click this radio button, This Provider and its Subordinates, it's going to pull in every referral that you received and you won't miss anything and no one will fall through the cracks. What kind of referral do we want to see? We want to see incoming. I want to see what referrals have I received. And then what is the status? Outstanding means they're still open, the client has not been served. Closed would mean they've already been closed and they're done. And then all would be a combination of the two. The referral outcome, so what is the outcome? I'm just going to leave that at all. And then the date range, so whatever date range you want to look at. So I'm just going to choose a generic date range for training. Then you can choose, once the report populates, you can choose the order or how it's sorted. So let's try it. Click on Select. And these are all the different columns in the report once it's billed, and you can say how you want to sort. We recommend that you sort by VI-SPDAT score and that you change it from ascending to descending so that your highest acuity will be at the top. And then you can also sort by name if you like, and add that. And then it'll alphabetize them. So first it'll sort by who has the highest score, and then it'll sort by alphabetized. Then click Submit. Once you've filled all this out like you want, then click the Build Report button on the right. And here's my referral report. So you can see all the clients that have been referred to my agency, the test agency, and they're sorted by VI-SPDAT score, the highest at the top and then going down. If you wanted to have this printed out, you can export the report to Excel. Please keep in mind that this referral report is only going to show you clients that have been specifically referred to your agency. The HMIS team also has available in ART reporting the ability to run a VI prioritization list, and this will pull every client that's seeking housing or shelter in your area, and it'll prioritize them by their VI-SPDAT score. And sometimes that's the best place to start when you have an opening in your permanent supportive housing or transitional project. Okay, let's go over a summary of what we covered today. Number one, before entering a VI-SPDAT assessment into HMIS, you must get in to enter data as to the Coordinated Assessment Project. Number two, you must complete the UDE assessment to the best of your ability before you fill out the VI-SPDAT prescreen. Number three, you must fill out all the questions on the VI-SPDAT prescreen assessment, such as interviewer name and agency, and especially the preferred referral county question. This is important for the prioritization report to work correctly. Number four, in the balance of state, a score of 5 to 9 signifies a possible transitional housing referral, as well as the rapid rehousing option stated at the bottom of the VI-SPDAT subassessment. Number five, use the Service Transactions tab to record your referral. Number six, the outcome of the referral should almost always be set as service pending, unless you know they are going to be immediately accepted into the shelter or housing project you made the referral to. Number seven, you must exit the client from Coordinated Assessment Project, preferably the same day as the entry. And number eight, to check for outstanding referrals you may have received from another agency or from the Coordinated Assessment Project, go to the Reports module on the menu bar and choose the Referrals Report button to build the report. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at the HMIS Help Desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. By following these steps and working through the system, you have completed training on Case Management 203, the VI-SPDAT, and Coordinated Entry. Thank you so much for attending, and please refer back to your training confirmation email for further instructions.